Hi, my name is Grant Kramer, and I'm Professor Emeritus at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I'm here today at the Main Sail Vineyard demonstrating pruning. Okay, we're here in Main Sail Vineyard, and you can see that most of the vineyard is dormant, but at the top of the hill here, we have vines that have broken bud and are growing. So your vineyard can be non-uniform depending on the conditions. Why this is happening? It could be the roots are warming up more in this particular soil at the top of the hill, and that's wakening the vines. But you can see they're clearly growing and breaking, and in fact here we even have a flower already forming. This guy is really advanced. So this is an additional challenge to the vineyard owner when you have variation in your vineyard. And again, look, down below, it's all dormant. Have a fun time.
Well, good morning. My name is Mike, and you are at Main Sail Vineyard here in San Diego County, Southern California. And it's that time of year where you want to get your vineyard squared away. I always like to keep it long first, and I do 2 cuts. Maybe you can span a little bit here, Grant, and you can see where in early January we topped off very tops. And the reason that we do that is so we can check our wires and make sure those are all in good shape, and we can take a look at our ties and everything else that needs to be done. So we do it in step by step, because you're never going to get everything done at one time. What this is has been extremely helpful. This is a very useful, very dangerous. We've already cut a couple of the wires when we were doing it a little bit earlier in January, and so we had to fix those, of course. So,
Of course, you could cut a finger off too.
and you can lose a finger too. So as I explained to my wife and anybody else who's out here, always make sure your hand is on something else when you're gonna use your. So I'm gonna top these off for you, and it's always good to.
This is the first cut, right?
Yeah, I'm showing you the first cut, and it's always good to cut in a lateral manner, because we still have periods of rain, and we want the rain to run off. We don't want it to. If you do a straight cut like that, the water's going to sit there and seep right down into your vine, and you don't want that. So you always want to do a lateral cut on all your vines. So you can see what you're doing. You're cleaning your vine up, your vineyard up. You're getting all this stuff off here. And you can see how effective these electric pruners are. I couldn't tell you how much it's changed. And really, I'm not promoting any company. I'm just saying it really helps.
You've been satisfied with these ones, though.
Very satisfied. They're lightweight. They're battery operated, obviously, and
You can go through it really quickly.
oops, that was close.
I was bumping into things. And then what do you do with your cuttings after you've thrown them on the ground?
Some people like to several things you can do. You can actually get your shredder, if you have one, mulcher, a shredder, and then run it through and put it back in the vineyard. Saves you the cost of any mulch or compost that you're already spending money on. Or you can make reefs. That's exactly what my wife did. Made some really nice reefs. So if you're artistic and have the time, you can do that.
So we have vine right here. It's Cabernet Sauvignon, and we want 40 clusters per vine in our ideal setup for this particular vineyard and the bigger conditions that are here in this vineyard. And so we're looking for 10 spurs with 2 buds. Each bud will produce a shoot, which will give us 2 clusters. So that's how we'll get our 40 clusters. 10 spurs make 2 buds, which make 2 shoots, which make 4 clusters per 2 shoots. Each shoot having 2 clusters. I know there's math involved there, but we'll figure it out. So we want to count, first of all, when we look at this vine, how many spurs do we have in general? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we don't have quite the 10 that we ideally want to have, so we have to make adjustments. When we select our spurs, we want spurs that are ideally uniformly spaced along the vine so that when our shoots come up, we have even spacing so we don't get crowding, so we get good air movement, open light to the canopy to improve our fruit set, as well as to reduce our powdery mildew, which is a big problem in this area because they're next to the ocean. They have moist air, fog rolls in here. It can be a real issue. So we have to adjust here because we only have 8. So eventually maybe we'll develop another one out here. Ideally we might start a new one out here to get one out further. On each one of these putative spurs, which have developed over the years, so this is growth from last year, this is growth from last year, this is growth from last year, but this other piece here is growth from a previous year. So we had 3 shoots coming off this spur last year, which is too much in ideal situations where we want 2 shoots per spur. So we're going to remove some of these. Now, how do we make a decision? Well, we want to look at how strong the shoot was last year, and you can do that by the thickness of the spur, of the shoot, or in this case, the cane. So a shoot turns into a cane at the end of the year because it becomes woody. So we have a lower one here. That's ideal because if we keep picking one up here, which may be very vigorous, which is good, we may get a spur next year that's starting from up here. And so the next year after that, it's up here, and the next year it's up here, and our fruit is way up high in the canopy. So we want to keep it down close to our arm here of this trunk that's coming off. So I'm going to cut here in a slanted direction, like that. That's done. Now I'm going to look for 2 buds. This is a basil bud down here. We don't want to choose that because basil buds often do not produce any fruit or don't even break. So ideally when we're doing this, I like to do it when buds are swelling and they're just about ready to break, because then you can see what's growing, what's good, what's healthy. And if we're in an area like in northern Nevada where we have a cold climate, we can help avoid frost because delayed pruning delays bud break. But we're not worried about that here. Frost is rarely a problem. So we have bud number 1 here on this side and bud number 2 on this side. So we only want 2 buds. So we're going to select it like that. And that spur is now pruned. Okay. Again, we have 2 here. What do I do? Well, we've got one lower and one bigger. But I'm also looking at spacing. And maybe the spacing's a little bit better over here. So in this particular case, we'll do a different decision. We'll take this one off. And again, we're going to select for 2 buds. That's a basil bud. Here's our first bud. So our second bud is on the opposite side over here. And we're going to cut it off right like that. Okay. Now you can see there's a healthy green to the end of these canes, and that's good. If it was brown and dry and no green, that's an indication it might be dead. The green is the phloem, and we want to see that. Okay, remember though, now I have only 8 spurs here in principle, and I want 10. So I might want to leave a couple of extra buds and then go to 3 buds on some of these. I could have done that here because it's a little bit more open. But again, this is also a little bit crowded. So maybe you just compromise and you say, okay, we're just going to go with 8 spurs this year. Maybe another spur will develop here in the future, or over here, or over here, as I mentioned before. And so our final goal is to have 10 spurs, but we may not achieve that in this year. We might have to compromise. Okay, I'm going to take this guy off. Why? Because I don't want to cut the wire. Because it's growing up the spur along, and I'm going to always be preferentially choosing the lower one. They both look about the same health. This is going to be a trickier cut, but I got it. And then we go down to 2 buds. Okay. After a while, you get to know where the 2 buds are. You don't have to sit there and count so carefully. Here again, we've got a lower one and an upper one. I'm going to take this one off, and I'm going to count this one: basal bud, primary bud, secondary bud, or second bud. We'll take it there. Okay, this spur. Again, this one's nice and healthy. These ones are okay, but I'll preferentially take this one, and I'm going to go for the second one. And I did a little bit of a poor cut on that one. Okay, again, we've got one up high, one low. In this case, we've got a little bit of space. I might leave 3 buds on this just to leave an extra shoot. You can always come back in later on and remove it if you're not satisfied with that plan. So we've got 1, 2, 3. We'll go there. We'll keep this one on, and I'm going to take the lower one off this time. Again, here we've got a big spur occurring. That we've got a remnant of a shoot over here. We want to take that off. And now we've got several buds here. I definitely want to take this one off because I'd rather take the lower one. So I'm going to cut this off. And we're going to go to 2 buds again. And then now we're at the end. And this is growing. It's getting a little bit long, a little undesirable. So we'll take this off here. Try to cut that a little bit cleaner. And we've got 1, 2, and we'll leave a 3rd one on just in case we want to keep it in the future. Take this little branch off there, and we're good. This one's tied. It could probably use another tie here in the future to help hold that. Again, there's a constant practice to have to be tying, so it's a good idea to carry some tape with you as you're working in the vineyard so you can tie it up immediately when you see it, rather than going back and going, oh, I'll get that tomorrow, and you forget exactly where it is. So
there's always decisions that you have to make when you're pruning, and what I like to say sometimes is not to get don't overthink it, because old-time wine grower and winemaker once told me that vineyards sometimes are like weeds, and they'll keep on growing and growing, and so whatever mistakes you might have made in the past, you'll be able to correct them the next time around.
So let's explain what this particular trunk is and what your goals were for that. So you have an end trunk here next to your post that's not your normal vine like this one, which has 10 spurs on it. In this case, how many spurs do you have on it?
Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, but we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming out. And I found that on our end post, it gets very crowded down here, very clustered, and I don't want a lot of crowding because in our neck of the woods, we're 9 miles as the crow flies from the ocean, and so the moisture comes in, and we've struggled with mildew. So I try to make sure that the vineyard is wide open, and that there's a lot of airspace that can go through, and not let that mildew build up. So
how How many spurs do we have on this vine right now?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that what you're asking me, Grant?
Yeah.
12, 13, 14, 15. And
And
we want 10.
Okay.
So,
So how do you make a decision as to which ones to keep?
the decisions that I make is which look the healthiest, and I'm also looking for spacing as well.
Okay.
You can see this is the one I got to come back and make sure it's secure, get some green ties and put it on there. I always try to make sure that I can get all my vines up, and if I ever have something that's coming out the side, I'll take it off. Both vines looked like they were still about the same in terms of their quality, about the same spot. So we're just cleaning house right now. So there you go. That's a little bit how you want it. That's how I like to do it, and it's been pretty productive for us in the past. So have a great season, everyone. Have a great harvest.
Very peaceful out in the vineyard. A great place to work.